name is Carlos. I live a humble life. I eat my food. I play with Dave. And I live in a simple way. But I love VR. Oh, look. Oh, wow. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Holy shit. Hey, Carlos, you little game cat. Alright. Happy viewer takeover.
This is Viewer Takeover. We film every Monday night and then bring it to YouTube every Tuesday afternoon, every night, every Wednesday, every Thursday. Who knows, man? This could air pretty much any time because I'm so off schedule. This is the first Viewer Takeover we've done in weeks. So who knows? I'm just happy we're back. As always, my name
These two fine gentlemen once again.
Yeah, looking good out there, guys.
Brian Paul from this channel right here without Parole. This guy in the middle. It's AJ from PSVR Underground. That guy far on my left. No, on my right, your left. Yeah, how this works. It's Dave from Dave Station VR. Looking very
what's up?
very Jonathan Frakes today.
Thank you. I got a haircut.
Especially Jonathan Frakes today.
AJ, I gotta say, I think you've got a new shirt on. You've never worn that
I
shirt.
do.
What is
I'm
that?
rocking. This is a Perfect Circle. I went and saw
Okay.
them live a couple years ago.
Guys, we want to thank a bunch of people here, of course, on Viewer Takeover. The first thing we want to do is we want to thank Dave for that awesome Viewer Takeover introduction.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave.
Debatable. I
We
don't
can
know.
thank Carlos. How about we thank Carlos?
Yeah, let's thank Carlos.
Carlos
He's really
killed
the
it.
star of the show there.
It was nice.
That was all
It was a
him.
nice intro. It was a cute cat, man.
A little bit of improv on his part.
Carlos looks like a baller.
He seemed to really enjoy that the cat condo, man. He's like
He
chilling up there.
finally does. Yeah, it took him months to actually like it. But
Nice, very nice. If you out there want to introduce next week's Viewer Takeover, make sure you send your short, sweet, seductive, kitty-inspired video to withoutparole@gmail.com. Keep it short, keep it simple, because it's a Gmail account, man. It's like more than 5 meg. It won't fit in the inbox. But send it along anyway. There's none in the queue, so if you want to do it, the likelihood is very high that you can be on it. But of course, Dave and Carlos aren't the only people we want to thank. We also want to thank these people down here. These lovely people. These people who went to patreon.com/withoutparole.
games.
The one's giving us $1 or more every single month, keeping this channel afloat, keeping it alive. We thank all of you. We do not ask you for much. We do not ask you for anything. But if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/withoutparolegames, just $1 or more every month. Appreciate you.
But that's not the only people we want to thank now, is it, Brian?
Absolutely not. Who else do we want to thank this week, AJ?
We would like to thank the people that took Beauty and the Decay's lead and changed their name to something GameCat, something #GameCat, something GameCat adjacent, as you like to say, Brian.
I like to say a lot of
And
things.
today, we have
What's
a
your
lot.
favorite thing to say?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8
Wow.
new Game Cats to welcome into the Game Cat.
No, this is going to
dojo.
take me forever to edit. so many new cats.
Keep them coming, cats.
As you guys
All
know,
right.
Game Cats are the loyal following of Without Parole, so if you change your name, let us know in the comments below by putting #GameCat so I can find you nice and easy, and we can give you a shout-out in next week's show. AJ, who changed your name to GameCat this week.
Starting with Hugh Downs, 2020 Game Cat.
I'm Hugh
Googling
Downs,
it.
and I'm Barbara Walters, and this is 2020.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I got
There
it.
we
I got
go.
it. Ah, yes, the year of the Game Cat, 2020.
I officially now have to change my name to Barbara Walters. GameCat.
Next up, we've got Ultimate Gaming Punch Cat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Ultimate Punch is actually also like killing it in touring carts leaderboards. So
Oh.
if you play, first of all, buy touring carts, go to leaderboards and go see greatness and try to beat him. I think I got like second on a few, but I couldn't commit to beating him. He's damn good.
Nice to know.
Next up, we have Ivan, Russian Game Cat.
In Russia, Game Cat plays you. I don't know how that joke is.
I think that worked perfectly, just like that.
Close enough.
Yeah.
We've also got K-Panic, the Game Cat Pro Patch, coming in with an extra 30% resolution and clarity.
Right. Dude's sharp as fuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
The anti-aliasing, everything. Looking really good. Love my PS4 Pro. Next, we have VR Boy Game Cat.
This could very well be a duplicate. I did not see a hashtag GameCat, but I don't remember ever giving VR Boy GameCat a shout out before. So I figured better safe than sorry.
Right, I agree. I mean, it sticks out for me because I would always say boy because I can't say it the other way. Okay. Next, we have believe _H3 the Sparta GameCat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is Meowdness.
I never would have gotten believe from that. That is exactly what it says.
Believe.
But I
think it's believe.
Well, because the capitalization, you got to say the B and the L out loud.
Yeah.
Although it sort of looks like believe. I don't know.
Maybe we're missing something completely. What's H3?
Tell us in the comments, how do we pronounce that shit? H3, maybe Halo 3 because he's a Spartan, and that's like a Halo.
I think you nailed it.
Could be.
Yep,
might be.
Next, we have Scooby Man, the GameCat.
Scooby.
Yeah, I'm definitely think of Scooby Doo every time I see
I
that.
really wish it was Scooby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that it? Was that the full Scooby Doo impression?
Yeah, right. I can't. That was really hard to do.
That was pretty good, though.
Next, we've got Brad Out of Hell, the GameCat.
That's a fucking great name. Brad Out of Hell. That's got to be a Meatloaf reference, right? To Bad Out of Hell?
Absolutely. But the thing is, we're reaching the point in time where people might not get Meatloaf references anymore.
I would
know what I mean?
Anything for love.
But I won't do that.
Like Brian said, remember, just change your name, #GameCat. Anything, make it up. Have fun with it, man. Do it every single week, too. Brian loves editing.
I hate editing. Why do I do this? But the real thing we do here on Viewer Takeover is we sit around, we try to answer your questions. We do that in two different ways. We either scour the comments from all of the videos, look for the hashtag Viewer Takeover, or if you join our Discord, it's much easier to leave a Viewer Takeover question or comment. You just go to, first you join the Discord server, click the link in the description, and then you go to the Viewer Takeover channel, and you just leave your question there. It's a 50-50 shot, so we usually get more Discord ones on each Viewer Takeover because there's more Viewer Takeover questions on our Discord than there are in the comments these days. So that's why we do it that way. So let's start with the first one from Tristanator, apparently also known as Trek Burker. 2000.
This is one of my OG. He was in one of the very first Catnip Cups tournaments playing Sprint Vector with me and the gang.
Right on. I miss Kelly. I haven't seen Kelly that much lately. He writes, this is from Discord. He writes, hashtag Viewer Takeover. I asked this in general, but I'll ask it here too for anyone with the same question. What would be a good VR horror game to start with? I want to get into horror, but the only horror game I've played so far is The Last of Us.
Do it.
So
Why don't you guys take it first?
We could take this question in a couple different ways.
There's so many horror games on PSVR. So if you're trying to get into horror,
because
but I'm saying if you're looking to get into horror stuff, there is going to be a lot for you to get into.
And horror is amazing in VR.
Brian, what do you think?
Well, so I took this question to mean that he wants to ease into horror, like maybe that he's not a horror, he's not comfortable with horror yet, and that maybe he doesn't love being petrified all the time. And so I say, well, let's ease him in and give him something that's not crazy over the top scary, and let's recommend something like Transference by Elijah Wood's company Spectrovision. And it's really like psychological horror. There's only a couple jump scares maximum, but you're always kind of on edge and you're always wondering what's around the next corner. So like it's tense, but it's not scary. And I thought that would be a good way to ease them in. Plus it uses DualShock 4, and I feel like when you're playing in VR, for some reason games that use the move controllers are scarier because you really feel like you got your hands in the game, and so I feel like there's a comfort zone where you're playing back with the DualShock 4. So I thought that this might be a good way to ease them in. What did you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome game. That's a very good game. And I would recommend that to anybody in the world. If you guys don't have it yet, go get it.
It's pretty good. But I would say rip that Band-Aid right off and jump right into Resident Evil 7.
You just want to kill the kid, man. Oh, poor guy.
I do not want to kill the kid. It was the first horror... Well, no, it wasn't the first horror game. I think Here They Lie was for me, but... it was one of the first like real horror games I'll never ever forget. And yeah, it is scary. It is a little challenging, but you can start it on like normal. But I promise you, once you get past this initial scare stuff of it, it kind of goes a little bit more in the action side. You got a while to go before that, but just go for it, man. Just rip that Band-Aid off. Uncle AJ's going to take care of you. Just do it. I wouldn't lie to you.
I love watching people play Resident Evil 7 who aren't that into horror games because they like won't even open a door for like 5 minutes. They keep like bargaining with themselves, like, okay, I'll open it in just a minute. And then they're like getting themselves ready. They get themselves ready, and they open the door, and nothing happens. So they're doing it for the next door too, and they're like,
The final thing, before Dave, I just got to say, you can do it. Like there is a myth that horror games are just too much for people to take and stuff, and if you have some actual conditions, I can understand, but they're not as hard as you think they are. It's just fear of the unknown. Save if you're too scared to keep going. Save your game and just run out in the open and just try.
But that's the hardest thing in the world to do because I do have an actual condition when I play scary games, and it's called being a fucking scaredy cat. Right? And
I was afraid. I was afraid.
Like I'm not gonna have a heart attack, right? But I feel like I'm gonna because I feel like.
And Tristan's good at games too. So
as far as I'm concerned, man, I love scary games. I love scary movies. I love scary everything. And I did all that bargaining with opening the doors. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Because in VR, it's a totally different beast, man. I can totally see that.
Well, that's my pick.
That's why I love it.
And I'm sticking with it.
It's a great pick. What about you, Dave?
I'm going to say Rush of Blood, Until Dawn Rush of Blood.
Yeah.
It's a horror game, but it's also not, like, in the same way that The Last of Us isn't just a horror game exactly. This isn't exactly just a horror game either. So if it's a new genre to you, there's elements of it, and it kind of includes those alongside a lot of other fun stuff, like roller coasters and light gun shooting. But there are scares, there's flashing lights, there's darkness, there's certainly enough spooky stuff to keep you going as far as a horror game goes. But there's enough around it that I feel like it would be a good kind of intro. And it's super cheap all the time. And just one of my favorite games on PSVR. So,
plus when you always have two guns, you don't feel quite as defenseless.
Yeah, exactly.
I can defend myself.
I mean, it might be the third time you've died in a row, but you still feel like you've got some agency there. Yeah.
It's a very fun game. Very fun and exciting.
All right, well, moving along. Who's got the next question?
Carlos wants to make a repeat appearance. Ooh. He's meowing at my doors. You introed that question. I'll bring him over.
All right. Next, we've got my dude, Joe Rody, the game cat from the Discord. Says hashtag Viewer Takeover. Hashtag it's a thing, like an old school pro. He says, so with the delay of things like Iron Man and big flat titles like Final Fantasy VII, parentheses VR mode, Cyberpunk 2077, do you prefer a delay over getting something working but needs to be patched? Not something totally broken like Espire 1, but say like Contagion that works but needs a little help. What say you, Brian?
I say that Carlos should join us for the full show.
Can we let Carlos answer?
Oh, he didn't hear the question. He doesn't have the headphones on.
It's okay.
Sorry to hear that. I don't know. What do you guys think of this? I mean, obviously, this question is hot on everyone's minds right now because of the recent Iron Man delay. Obviously, when games get delayed, obviously no one's super happy about it. No one's like, "Oh, I'm so happy this game got delayed." Yeah. But there's a part of me that goes, "Well, I'm happy that the developers and the publishers were smart enough to say, well, it's not ready, and it's not going to be ready on time." So I'm not happy about the delay, but I'm happy they were smart enough to delay the game and make sure that it's better than it was going to be on release day.
I have a kind of a different angle on that. As far as being smart enough to delay it, I think the issue is that they were too dumb to realize they couldn't get it done in time. And so what's happened with Cyberpunk specifically is you hear these stories coming out that it's not like, oh, it's great, we get a better game, they get more time to work on it and whatever. Like, it's just 6 extra months of crunch. Because they didn't plan it right. And so they aren't going to meet these lofty goals that they have. And for me, I would rather have a game that, doesn't try to do everything in the world and work the developers to death and say, hey guys, we thought it was going to be done, but we're going to have to keep you on the hook for another 6 months and you're going to have to work fucking 80-hour weeks. And I think you have to scale your game properly when you're planning it. And so I don't think it's smart for any developer to delay stuff because it's like, if they were smart, they would have planned it properly in the first place. Or if you get to that point where it's like, we can't do everything, decide what you don't have to do and take that stuff out and leave in the stuff that you've got pretty much done to make a game that, people aren't going to miss stuff that they don't know about.
Do you think at this point, I think it's one thing when you're talking about like CD Projekt Red and you're talking about Cyberpunk, but do you think it's a different story altogether when we're a month out from Iron Man's release and it's not going to be ready for a few more months? Like, I think at this point it's probably too late to strip things out, right? It's like it's all about tying up those loose ends at this point and making sure
but I mean,
it works right.
They also haven't shown us that much detail wise in terms of like, oh, it's going to have this specific thing, it's going to have that specific thing. So if we got say we got the next month version of Iron Man, and then they added in more stuff as they had a chance to polish it on a more relaxed schedule, DLC, that sort of stuff. Give us a product that's good, not the ultimate product in the world, and then keep adding on. Of course, it's going to be better when it gets here. That's not really a question, I think, but I don't know.
I'll just be straight up honest. Like, I am, when it comes to game releases, I'm a little impatient. So I typically don't mind getting it, early, not to the extent of Espire 1, like Rhodey said, but to something like Golem, which was pretty much good to go. I really wish that developers by now, all of them, would know that people prefer smooth locomotion, full locomotion, smooth turning. I just saw today that Budget Cuts 2 just added a patch for some full locomotion and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, come on, guys. Like really, like we talk to you guys like on a regular basis, like we homies, and you still don't know this. It's like, man. So, the thing is, am I okay with the delay? Yes. As long as they really are, making it as best as they can be. I do think Iron Man could have easily been announced way later down the line. I mean, this is like an important game for VR right now. This is like a pretty big system seller to the mainstream market. So yeah, but they could have, they had plenty to show at that first state of play of last year, and they didn't have to show Iron Man, where people weren't even that impressed anyways. I think they should have just saved it for later on down the line. If there's one thing about Sony's marketing that I've seen, it's just they bunch it together a little too much. Just spread it out. And like you said, yeah. But that being said, am I mad when they announce stuff early? Absolutely not. I love getting early and on the hype. Does it kind of drag out? Yes. Did I regret playing Golem at launch? No, absolutely not. I enjoyed it very much. But my experience, no doubt, would have been better had I waited for the patch.
Right. I mean, obviously, the three of us are playing games before day one, right? We're playing games on day zero, trying to have reviews ready for day one. And so, and we're definitely getting the short end of the stick, right? We're playing like the inferior version. Sometimes it's a day one patch, so that like even our reviews are irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
And so what am I really going to go through and play a game all the way through again a week after launch because it got a slight improvement in the graphics or a slight improvement in a control scheme or blah blah blah, this or that? It's like, no, I played the inferior version of the game, and a lot of people, especially with Espire 1, I don't know if there will ever be a superior version of that game, but like there's going to be very few people that play the final version of that game. It's like everyone who's already bought it has played it, understands that it's not a very good game, and no matter how much they patch that, how many people are really going to go back to it, right? So I'm as far as release dates go, I don't give a fuck about release dates. Delay games as long as you want to. I do not care. When it's ready, put it out. And to AJ's point about about announcing games early, I've said it over and over. I've never been more excited about a game than I was for Fallout 4 when they announced it and then released it just a couple months later. I'm like, for me, that is the
best.
That is the best business model you could possibly have, man. That hype train just carries itself.
Right. Don't let it die down.
Yeah. Young and boy says hashtag
Young and boy.
So viewer takeover, hashtag viewer takeover. I noticed Brian recently started to give his reviews a score to go along with the positive/negative aspects of the game. My question is, what would you consider to be an average score to a game you review? Some examples. Game Informer's average score is 7 out of 10. GameSpot's average score is 6 out of 10. IGN's average score is 5 out of 10. And then he writes in parentheses, not even kidding on this one. LOL. So this is a tough question, right? And at a certain point, I did come up with a scale rating scale, and to kind of get all this into perspective. And I typed out what each number meant, so that when I'm giving a game a score, it's not just this arbitrary number, right? I'm not going to say 7. That's kind of average. 7.
Yeah.
You know, developers put so much time and effort and energy into making their games, even the bad ones, that if you're just going to slap a number on the end of it, it better have some meaning. I don't like the idea of numerical scores on reviews. I just want to put that out there. This was something I did after a lot of thought. I mean, like literally.
I convinced him to.
No.
I was like, Brian, it's so much fun. You got to do it too, man.
It was fun because when AJ started doing reviews, he was talking about putting numbers on them, and I was like, that's so funny because literally the next review I'm planning on doing is going to have numbers on it. It was years of me finally being convinced that this doesn't detract anything from the review that I'm creating. For people who don't want a numerical score, please just ignore it. Because
or just watch my channel. I don't give numerical scores.
Or just watch Dave's channel. Dave's keeping it real.
To. I gave it up. For a while.
Good plug, Dave.
And I was like, fuck it. I don't want to do this. Just listen to me talk about it. If you think it sounds cool, buy it.
I love giving a score at the end because it's just like something to kind of just put somebody's, like, I feel like a review can almost be incomplete without a score. I think you can take away enough information as long as it's conveyed well enough. But yeah, for me, I think for me a 6 is an average. I'm still kind of working it out a little bit, but yeah, I think 6 is kind of average. Well, I've got Aspire 1 at 5.5, so I think that's not an average game. That's a bad game.
Below average, yeah. My thought is 7. Like, I think 7.
No, 7 is good for me.
Well, no, here's the thing. If I'm looking at a game on Metacritic and it's got like a 68, I'm not like stoked to go buy that game. Right. I'm not actually even probably going to buy it. So when stuff is below like 75 or 80, it kind of falls off my radar. And I know, there's sort of, you miss out on stuff that you might personally like that isn't well reviewed. But, there's so many games, man. Like, you kind of got to just go with the scores at some point and say, what is worth my time? What does everybody agree is like a really fucking game you got to play?
Well, so when a number turns you off, Dave, and you go, this, maybe 6.5, right? If you go, if AJ and I are saying maybe 6 is average, like, you also have to consider what average means. Average means it's okay. It's competent. Yeah, it's competent, but it's not great.
That's fine for like passing a test or something. But like, if I'm going to spend $60 or like even $30 on something, I want to know that it is one of the best ways I could spend my time on a PS4.
Right. So
or a Switch or whatever.
So if a game is getting an average review, right? If a game is getting an average score, if it's getting anything less than an 8, then it's probably not on your radar. That's kind of what it's making it sound like.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is though, it's rare that a game is on my radar and I'm stoked about it and then it isn't decently rated, because you kind of get a feeling before games come out, except for in really rare cases, of the level of quality just based on early gameplay videos or impressions from gaming conventions, or like, I don't know, just I feel like I can usually tell, and it lines up pretty well with if it's a good game or not.
I'm gonna agree with AJ. I really, I put a lot of thought into my review scale. I think 6 is a good average, and I've always respected that IGN. I don't mind their 5, because I feel like if you put your average lower, you can sort of explore that scale a little bit more. Because really, it's like, once a game is crap, what's the difference between a 1, 2, 3, or 4 even?
Right.
It's just
there can be significant differences, and I think for me, it's like grading a test. That lower range is there to show how terrible.
Right. Like, does the game do anything right?
Yeah. And so, like, a C is considered average, right? C is passing, but just right in the middle. And that's what, a 70? Mm-hmm. So I think for me, 70, 75 is around where I would kind of draw the line for average.
I think once you start getting to that like 8 range, these are all games you better start paying attention to, right? And then 9 is like fucking stellar, and then 10 is reserved for, if I'm giving,
I'm intentionally, I haven't given a single 9 yet, and that's kind of on purpose, because I really want, especially to leave that space for the future when we have a 20-hour long Astrobot game. That's gonna get that 10 out of 10 from me.
If you were to review, like, say, Blood and Truth today, would you give that a 9?
I think I'd have to give it a 9 because of the experience. I think the experience would bump it up to a 9 for me. Yeah.
I think 9's a great score for that game.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, you know, like that's another thing is here's why I like review scores is because when the three of us all talk about a game and then we stamp a number at the end of it, we can kind of go, oh, Brian liked it a little bit more than AJ did. Or you know, AJ liked it a little bit more than Polish Paul did, or, you know, or something like that. But I think people are going to get confused very quickly when one game gets an 8.5 and another game gets an 8.5. And you go, oh, you think these, you know, this $25 game that got an 8.5 is just as it deserves the same score as the $60 game, $60 AAA big budget game that also got an 8.5. You can never do that. That is not what review scores are. And so I think people are going to start comparing these games to each other and saying this is what you think of these games and this is how they compare to each other. I was like, that's not how review scores work.
Yeah, they're not. It's not. Both Golem and Shadow Legend have an 8.5 for me. And honestly, like if Golem was $30 instead of $40, like that probably maybe have bumped it up to a 9.
Everything plays into it. Everything.
Yeah, everything. So I mean, you're talking about two 8.5s, but one's $25 and one's $40. So that's a significant amount of money, in my opinion.
Right. I never want to, you know. I never want to do the Game Pro thing where I'm like, the graphics go to 5 and the sound go to 4 and this go to that.
I used to love that. Overall, the face.
Oh, I hated that. I hated that.
Everybody hated it. I used to.
And so,
I mean, there's still people who do that. I mean, like ACG does that. He breaks. Yeah,
it's just not my style.
It's important.
It's cool for them. It's just not my style. It's not something I ever want to do.
Yeah, it's more of just a technical thing. Like how are the graphics? How is the sound? You can literally say that shit in like 5 seconds. It doesn't take 20 minutes.
It's just I want to, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, you know, is there some kind of system you could put out there to show people how you like arrived at your score? And I said no, because I'm going to arrive at my score through how I feel about a game, not through any mathematical equation or be like, oh, the graphics were really good and the controls were amazing, but the sound was terrible. It's like no. It's like I might if I love the game so much, I might ignore that sound issue. Right, because I feel like this game is this number, and that's what it comes down to. It's going to be about feeling, and you're not going to be able to say, well, Skyrim's better than Borderlands because it got this score and this. No, every game is rated separately, and that's the. And I think putting a number on the end of a review, you can only compare that review to somebody else's review who also used the same numerical scale, and so this is why I have such an issue with ratings, with putting a number at the end of a review, because these are the issues you run into. I'm 2 reviews down, and I can already see numerous problems like arising because of it.
So why'd you decide to do it?
Yeah, it's time. It's 2020. We need to change. But I don't know.
All right, David.
All right, we got the final viewer takeover question, which comes from Stupid Donkey. And this one's not from the Discord. He actually left a comment on Viewer Takeover, or hashtag Viewer Takeover, like a boss. And he says, what type of original game would you want in VR? Use your imagination. I want a true skydiving experience in VR. Hashtag Viewer Takeover.
I like his idea of going with extreme sports. That's something that I would definitely love to see. Speaking of,
I know what you're going to say.
A snowboarding game.
I knew you were going to say that. Of course.
I mean,
this is like paint by the numbers with AJ.
Right.
I will repeat this because not everybody watches the same episode. Give us a damn snowboarding game in VR. I want to fly off like side of mountains and stuff and be like, woo, and grabbing, doing indie note like stale fish and like all this stuff. That's how I want to do it. And I don't want any ripping it out of first person, putting it into third person. I want total first person. Just use leaning and just grab and use buttons. But good to go. Extreme snowboarding game is what I want.
Yeah.
Cool Borders VR. Sony, come on.
I would take it.
Let's go.
Dave, do you have one in mind?
Let's see. I just had one in my brain, and I'm trying to think of what it was. So I feel like a mech game would be nice. Not like we've had a few mech games. We've had Archangel, which was cool, but it's an on-rail shooter.
Yeah.
And then we had
Code 51.
Code 51, which was kind of cool, but it had some issues at launch. And then it's a multiplayer game that nobody ever really played. And then you got Riggs, which is way too overstuffed with game mechanics to be straightforward and fun. But I used to play Mech Warrior all the time and those kind of games. And I feel like that's so well suited for VR because anything where you have a cockpit and levers and buttons and all that sort of stuff is just really satisfying. And just like that sense of scale, like, they have an Evangelion VR experience in Japan. I would fucking kill for that on PlayStation VR. Something like that, or like Pacific Rim, or any kind of mech thing would be really cool.
I will say, I know I've talked about it before, but like AJ says, not everybody watches every show. So I'll say it again. Man, on the original Xbox, there was Steel Battalion that came with the $200 controller. And I mean, the great thing about VR is that you don't need a controller. You get to move controllers, and that can just be a virtual $200 controller. Mm-hmm. It can just be the actual cockpit and pulling levers and pushing buttons. Like that could just be a fully functional dashboard. I don't know who owns the rights to Steel Battalion. Obviously, it was on the OG Xbox, but I don't know if Microsoft published it. I'm assuming they did. So we might not see something like that, but we could see something similar. No one's got the rights to mech games. That would be pretty cool to see. I gotta be honest.
Another one that's not mine.
No, I gotta be honest. I don't have an original answer because here's the thing. When I was a kid, right? When I was a kid, I would design video games, right? I would actually program them in BASIC, and I had different construction game kits that I could actually like build sprites with and stuff on my Commodore 64. So I would actually make games. And as I got older, I stopped wanting to make my own things and stopped caring about my own ideas and started gravitating and being more interested in what other people were creating for me to play. And I got to say, like, Resident Evil 7 did something to me that no other video game has ever done. And I was so impressed by that I just want to hand Capcom,
oh my God,
the rights to my imagination and go, please, whatever you want to do, just give it to me in VR. The next Resident Evil, the next DMC, whatever you want to do. Like I just trust them to make it amazing. Because that was.
I would also let Sega have a little bit of it. Sega and Capcom can have it together. Yeah. Because if we got like we've talked about before, Jet Set Radio would be so perfect for VR. The mechanics, sprint vector your way around, spray paint stuff on the walls, like it's perfect.
And of course, Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy Taxi is always my go-to when we're talking about like old, like PS1, Dreamcast, PS2 ports. Those are the first stuff I go to. And plus, for a game that I'm not really interested in playing, like Shenmue, man, in VR I would play Shenmue. Like I would suddenly be interested in exploring that world, but I have no interest in playing that on a flat screen. But yeah, so no real answer, unfortunately. But yeah, obviously you guys have plenty of good ones.
All right. So for the next question, I'll take this one. We got Orseek, the game cat. He posted in the Discord in hashtag Viewer Takeover, says hashtag it will be a thing. Says, imagine the PS5 gets a VR system menu. How do you picture it? This is actually a great question because I've wanted VR menus for so long. Pretty much, I wanted all the, if you pre-order Moss, I want a VR dynamic theme. Ooh, and I actually talked to Trump Pixel at one point about this. And I'm like, can you guys do this? And they basically said the way the PS4 is designed, they can't do it. The closest thing is a Rick and Morty dynamic theme that like kind of has the illusion that it is. But we're talking things like the PlayStation Demo Disc Volume 1 menu. How many people the first time they played that blew their mind? Another one would be the PlayStation VR Worlds menu, something like that. And it's even got like the little interactive thing. I would love to have dynamic themes with just, a simple way to interact with each icon, but some crazy menu to sit there and look around. The best part about Final Fantasy Monsters of the Deep is the main menu. Where you sit there underwater and there's just giant fish. So cool. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to have like theme. I like the idea of themes because I'm thinking like you mentioned a couple, but like say Job Simulator theme where you have games that are actual cartridges like they have in the main menu of Job Sim, and you just pop it in and pull a thing and you're in the game. That could be a really cool idea. I imagine what it'll probably end up being if we do get one is more like Oculus, what they're doing now, where it's like you have a bedroom. It's kind of a swanky bedroom. You can pick from some different options, or like a living room or something like that. And it'd be cool to be able to decorate it and invite people over. And like before you play a game, instead of having a party chat, you guys are hanging out in somebody's apartment in VR or whatever. What do they used to call it? PS
Home, PlayStation Home.
Everybody's been clamoring for that to come back. It makes perfect sense to do something like that.
It makes perfect sense for VR. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that social aspect of having if you have your headset on, you turn your PlayStation 5 on, and you load into something like Rec Room, something like PlayStation Home, where it's like here's your social environment. Before it's just integrated into the hardware itself. I mean, that's the oasis, right? That's the kind of dream of VR. Where it's like I don't have to start up Rec Room because that is my OS. That's where I am. That is home. I like that. I don't like what Oculus is doing in terms of, oh hey, your menu is on this flat screen over here, where you're like, oh my interface is still just a flat screen over here, and like if I'm going to be
it's still better than the PSVR interface.
Like seeing a screen.
I mean, the entire thing in PSVR is a flat screen. It's just black around the edges.
Right.
On Oculus Quest, you have a room you're standing in, and you point up and you grab this thing.
Sure.
So it's still an improvement, but
I would like
closer.
I would like
closer
it to be
something like
I'd like to be some kind of VR implementation into the menu itself, even if it's something as simple as just grabbing something and putting it somewhere else, or you get these cool lasers that you're pointing and drag something. I don't know. Like
it could be bubbles flying around you with like menus, like games to pick from.
Well,
it's like
there's
virtual
so many different
Vita.
ways.
The other thing too is AJ. I think you'd be down for this. Somewhere to actually display trophies, like these are my platinums, like a shelf that has your shit on it.
I don't think I'd want to see like 5,000 trophies just like sitting right there.
Maybe you just show off your platinums, or maybe each game has its own unique. Like if each game had its unique design on what a platinum trophy looks like on your shelf, like a baseball trophy versus a basketball trophy versus whatever, they all look different. That would be kind of cool. And say this is my, Resident Evil 7 trophy. It looks like Jack, stuff like that, little commemorative stuff.
Man, the more we talk, the more I'm just dying for PlayStation Home to come back in VR. I would, when PlayStation Home was a thing, I used to like maybe drop into it once a week. I'd have my dude, I'd run around, I'd like eavesdrop on people's conversations and see what they were talking about. Go check out any of the rooms, which the rooms were all promotional things. They were
that's kind of why it never really took off, is because everybody was waiting for games to get integrated into it. And they were supposed to have like Uncharted and like all this stuff that never actually came to fruition, and that kind of is what killed it.
Well, there were like Siren had their own mini game, and I thought Uncharted did have a game. But they were all like these small little areas. It wasn't obviously like full-fledged anything, but if this would be a great way to promote VR games, to be like, hey, here's like a demo, or like just like kind of a mini game based on our game, to have those kind of things. But honestly, when I was running around in Home, I never spent any money. I think I maybe spent 75 cents on like one discounted shirt one time, because I was like, I'm never going to be in this thing and I'm never going to care about it. But if it was there from like the launch of PlayStation 5, where I could start customizing that area, like the place that I'm going to spend hundreds of hours every year, I would spend a small fortune decking out my little apartment and putting custom posters up on the wall and making sure that my place was cool and had a nice view. And I mean,
especially if you could invite people, for sure.
Absolutely. Come over and like, hang out, and we'll play, N64 in my bed. That's my pickup line. Cool. That's the best I got.
Is that your Tinder profile?
That's my go-to line. Yeah.
I'd swipe right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that's going to do it, guys. This is our first viewer takeover in a while. Thank you for hanging out and answering some questions. Hopefully, we're getting back on the Without Parole schedule this week, so we'll be doing this far more often and on a much better schedule than we were before. Yeah, guys, if you want to be part of the show, make sure you submit your viewer takeover introduction to withoutparole@gmail.com. Make sure you send your viewer takeover comments, your questions to our Discord server and in the comments below with the hashtag viewer takeover. Make sure you hit us up on Patreon. Make sure you change your name to GameCat, hashtag GameCat, all the stuff we already told you to do. Just fucking do it. Just do it, man. Just do it.
And by the time this airs, go watch all 3 of our Shadow Legend reviews. We're all going to have our own reviews of Shadow Legend. Theoretically, if all goes well.
Theoretically, that is definitely the hope. Spoilers. I think we all loved it.
It's pretty good. It's got some issues, but it's pretty good.
I'm gonna say minor issues. Say very good.
Yeah, sure, minor.
All right, you guys want to do another viewer takeover and just talk about Shadow Legend?
Sure.
All right, let's get out of here, guys. Thank you very much to all the cats watching. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, AJ. My name's Brian. This was Viewer Takeover, and we're out. Hey AJ, when I told you to turn up your mic, I didn't expect you to fucking start doing this.
Hello.
Right. So back the fuck off it a little bit for me.
All right. I just want to.
Don't worry, I'll chop that out.
Hold it and make it look nice.
No, keep it in. That was fun.